Earlier this week, I put a call out on my community tab to see if anybody would be interested in me filming a Q&A in the near future. And for everyone who has already submitted questions, whether it was in the community post or in the anonymous Google form that I posted there as well, thank you so much. I received so many interesting questions, and I am so excited to film a video soon. I'm trying to decide if it makes sense to try to answer as many questions as possible in one video, or if I want to maybe break them out by category. So if you are interested in Q&As, and I know not everybody is, then please let me know what you would prefer. There was, however, one question that caught my eye, and when I saw it, I thought this would be so great as a standalone video. So that is what we are filming today. Thank you, Aquarius2, for your question, which was, what are your top 5 pen and inks? I thought this would be a good thought experiment because my pen collection has grown quite substantially, and also my ink collection has also grown exponentially. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. So I thought, what are the pens and inks that have kind of lasted the test of time? What are the pens and inks that I've been using for years and that I keep going back to? Not necessarily my absolute favorites that I get excited about, because that obviously changes by mood and by situation, but there are certain inks that I just find myself coming back to over and over again, and I thought we could talk about those today. Okay, so the first pen that I want to talk about, and I have talked about this pen so many times on my channel for good reason, is this Pilot Vanishing Point. This is the very first vanishing point that I have, and it's one of the only ones that still remains in my collection. Over the years, I have tried the Decimo, which is the thinner version of the Pilot Vanishing Point, and I also used to have a yellow vanishing point as well. I have since sold the yellow one. I've sold my beautiful pink and gold one because, as beautiful as it was, I just wasn't using it as much as this one. And I still have a light blue Decimo with a very juicy medium nib that I'm trying to sell. So if any of you are interested in that, then please feel free to reach out to me. But this is the only vanishing point that I want to keep in my collection. I was so lucky, and I was able to try this pen out in person at Wonder Pens because I was quite new in my fountain pen journey, and I was taking a lot of notes, and I was finding that as much as I loved using fountain pens during meetings, I was frustrated by how quickly the pens were running dry, and I was getting all these hard starts when I was taking notes. And so the idea that I could have a clickable pen that I could use during meetings was so intriguing to me. But because I had read about a lot of people not loving this clip, because when you hold the pen, the clip is here, I really wanted to make sure that I tried it out in person first. And so when I went to Wonder Pens, they very kindly let me try out the different models, and I just fell in love with this pen. I love how it feels in my hand. It's because it is like this glossy finish. It just feels very comfortable. I love the weight of it. I love the gold trim, and I do think that any ink could go in here because it's such a classic colorway. I will say that it did take me some time to settle on an ink that I really enjoyed in here. I think over the years, I've realized that I didn't always handle other inks very well, and I actually ended up discounting a lot of inks because they didn't really flow well in here, or they didn't really write well in here. And I've now learned that this fine nib was a bit of a dry writer. So I did have this tuned last year, and I currently have a DeAtramentis document brown ink, which I have had in here for I think almost a year. I just keep refilling it. And it is my perfect pairing. It is a waterproof ink. So all of what you see here, these are all done in this DeAtramentis document brown. And I love it because it is waterproof, so I can highlight over it, and it just makes for a very functional pen for me. So I can take notes in it, I can highlight. It does take a little bit longer to dry, but I don't mind. I always have some blotting paper nearby, and that has been enough for me. So yeah, my first pen is this Pilot Vanishing Point in a fine nib, and I have used it every single day since I got it in 2023. The next pen is a surprise for me. This is my Kaweco collection Sport, and it's also one of the first pens that I ever got. I love this colorway. This is the olive, this is like a beautiful olive green. Originally, I bought this because I wanted to only ink this exclusively with an olive green ink, but I actually find that I don't really care as much about matching the ink to the pen body. What I love about this pen is the fact that, first of all, I think it's gorgeous. I've always thought these are beautiful pens. They come in so many different colors, and I really have to restrain myself from wanting to buy more. I currently have two. I have this one and I have the Macchiato. I used to have the Kaweco Brass Sport as well, but I have actually given that to my partner, and it's amazing that he actually loves it. So that is his pen now, and he loves that. I found it too heavy and I didn't enjoy it. But I love the weight of this pen. Again, I love how it feels in my hand because it's like, I don't know if it's resin or just plastic, but it's a warm pen. Like, it doesn't feel cold in my hand like the brass pen did. I used to not like this because I felt like the nibs were so hit and miss, and sometimes inks don't perform as well in this pen. And so there was a time when I was actually thinking about selling my two Kaweco Sports, but I've changed my mind about them because I love that they are no fuss pens. They are very affordable. I know there are even more affordable pens out there, but these are quite affordable compared to, say, the Pilot Vanishing Point. And I love that I can put any ink in here and not worry about it. And I have it in a broad nib right now. It's a linen toolbar Sam Soi Ho. Hopefully I pronounced that right. And right now I have it in a broad nib, and it is a very enjoyable writer. And I don't have to worry about whether this ink is going to ruin the pen because you can buy the nibs separately. And so even if I ruined this nib, I could just buy a replacement nib, which I do really appreciate because I do find with some of my other higher end pens, you can't just buy a nib separately. You have to buy a whole new pen if you want to try a different nib size. So I really appreciate that with Kaweco, you can get different nibs. And I just think that, I don't mind using the converter because if I just want to try out an ink, I don't always feel like I have to fill a full cartridge up. And yeah, it's just a very easy pen to disassemble, to clean. I love that it's pocket size, and this is just so beautiful. So it's a surprise to me because I didn't think that I really liked these pens, but I've definitely come around. And I especially like using the bigger nibs, like a medium or a broad, and I just have so much fun with them. Okay, the next pen, I'm sure, will come to no surprise if you have been watching my channel for a while, but the next one is my beloved Pilot Custom 823. So I got this pen in 2024, and I felt a little nervous. This is the first pen that I bought where I didn't try it out. So Wonder Pens unfortunately did not sell this pen in their store. So I did end up buying this pen from a reseller in Japan off of eBay, and I was really nervous. It was definitely the most expensive pen that I had invested in at the time, but I had heard such great things about it, and I just loved how it looked. I love the colorway. I think this brown amber color is definitely my favorite. I know they recently came out with a pink version of the 743, which is very similar to this model. Beautiful pen, but if I had to choose, I would always choose this amber color. So I have this in a fine nib, and it has been inked ever since I got it in 2024. It's my favorite journaling pen. I have since collected a lot of other pens that I enjoy journaling with, so it doesn't get used as much as it used to, I will admit, but it's definitely one of my favorites that I always come back to, and it handles every ink I throw at it really well. It shows so much beautiful shading. It's so comfortable in my hand. I found with this Vanishing Point, this is great for short notes. And yeah, if I'm taking notes or if I'm using this in my planner. But when I tried journaling with this, I did find that it would kind of fatigue my hand a little bit. And so this one, though, no fatigue. It's perfect for my grip, and I could write for hours and hours with this pen. So definitely one of my all-time favorite pens. And if I ever were to lose this pen, I would definitely rebuy it. I know they are so much more expensive now than they were even in 2024 when I bought this pen, which is kind of sad. Okay, the next one is actually over here in my coconut journal. This is my Sailor Pro Gear Slim. I got this pen in 2023. And I actually got this pen from Yoseka. I got this along with another Sailor Pro Gear Slim in the Kiku color. And I love both, but I love this colorway more. This is actually an extra fine nib. And as far as extra fine nibs go, I really enjoy this one. I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of the Pilot extra fine nibs, although my Pilot E95S with an extra fine nib is great. But this nib has been a joy since I got it. And even better is the fact that it wrote really well right out of the box. I do sometimes have trouble with certain inks just because it is so fine that sometimes certain inks maybe don't show up as well. But usually I put a brown of some sort or a very saturated ink in here now that I understand what type of ink this pen does better with, and I just enjoy it. Again, it's that same kind of resin or plastic, I'm sorry, I don't really know, but it's that feeling where it's like warm in your hand, and I do write with it posted, but I just feel like it's the perfect size for me. I definitely have picked up more Sailor pens since, and I love them. They are beautiful colors, and Sailor is definitely one of my favorite pen brands, but this one is definitely a pen that I always go back to, and I think if I hadn't had such a great experience with this pen, I probably wouldn't have wanted to try more Sailor pens in different nib sizes, so this one is one of my favorites. The last pen to round up my top 5 is the Platinum 3776, and this is the Celluloid Tortoise, and I have it in a fine nib. The nib is a little dirty at the moment. These pens are extremely expensive in North America, so I did end up purchasing this off of eBay. I originally purchased it because I loved this colorway. I was actually debating between this pen and the Esterbrook SD that also comes in a tortoise colorway, but I ended up going with this pen because I was very curious to try the Platinum nib, and I think Platinum makes their nibs in-house, and so I just really wanted to try a Platinum nib. When I first got this pen, I had so much trouble finding an ink that would write well in here. I guess it's a dry writer, but I found that every ink that I would put in here, it would start off kind of saturated, but if I was writing for a longer period of time, the ink would just get lighter and lighter and almost feel like it was drying out, even though I was in the middle of a writing session. And so I almost gave up on this pen. Then I ended up pairing it with a DeAtramentis document ink. I've had a few different document inks in here. Right now it has DeAtramentis Sepia Brown. I don't know what it is about DeAtramentis inks, but it is a match made in heaven, and I have tried other inks since, just in case there was something weird going on with the pen, but it just doesn't seem to handle other inks as well. And so this pen is permanently inked with DeAtramentis inks, and it is just an amazing writer. It really does feel like something in between these two pens in terms of writing experience, and I love it. Some days I even think I prefer this over that, which is crazy, but I guess some days I just feel like I want a little more feedback. This is definitely the smoothest writer, the most feedback out of the three Japanese pens here, and then this one really sits in the middle. It feels like I'm writing with a lead pencil instead of a mechanical pencil, or like a nail, but it's pleasant. I'm so glad that I found an ink that pairs perfectly with this pen, and this is the reason why I have expanded my platinum collection, because it's made me want to try other nib sizes, and I gotta say, like, it rivals Pilot in terms of one of my favorite pen brands, because I feel like Pilot has the best writing experience if you like that smooth writing, and it's very reliable. But platinum pens are just so beautiful, especially some of those special edition pens that have been coming out in Japan. In terms of the age of these pens, I would say 2022, 2023. Okay, so this is how it goes in terms of age. So I got this in 2022, 2023, 2023, 2024, 2024. So I think it's kind of amazing that this one, and this one are always inked. The only time they're not inked is when I'm cleaning them and they're drying, but they're always inked. These two are not always inked, but they're currently inked. Since they're all currently inked, I guess I can do a little bit of a writing sample for you. So I'll go 2022 Kaweco collection. And then next we have this. I got this in 2023. And this is currently inked with DeAtramentis Document Brown. And this is a fine nib. Then this one is my Sailor Pro Gear Slim. So this is, I also got this in 2023. Even as an extra fine, it just writes so well. And this is Diamine Vermilion. And this is my Pilot Custom 823. I got this in 2024 and a fine nib, and this is Pilot Iroshizuku Tsukushi. And last but not least, my Platinum 3776 that I got in let me just double check. Yeah, 2024. 3776 fine DeAtramentis Sepia. So I don't know if you can tell, but I really love brown inks too. But yeah, these are my top 5 pens that have lasted the test of time and that I keep going back to time and time again. I do have some honorable mentions. They are newer pens to my collection, which is why I wanted to focus on pens that I've had for several years. I got this Traveler's Brass pen around the end of last year, and I adore this pen. I prefer this pen over the Kaweco Brass Sport. It just feels, it's a little less heavy, and even though it is a brass pen and it's cold, like it's a metal pen, which is not my preference, this one doesn't feel so bad in my hand, and I thought it would be this way because I quite enjoy using the brass pencil. I don't know why it's different, but this one just doesn't have the same like cold feel. So I do love this pen, and it writes so well. I currently have a shimmer ink in here, and it's been in here for a couple of weeks, and there's no hard starts. It's actually this ink right here, and I don't know if you can see it, but it has the most beautiful shimmer. This is a Tono and Limbs ink sample that I got from Michael in the Margins, and I'm obsessed, but I cannot find a bottle of it anywhere. It's called Honey Don't Worry. So I'm just going to have to savor the ink sample, but yeah, I'm really loving this pen, but I will see how I feel in a few more years before I add it to a list like this. And then another pen that is newer to my collection is this Pilot Kakuno. I did not know these existed when I was early on in my fountain pen journey, and I actually fell in love with Pilot because of the writing experience in the Pilot Metropolitan that Wonder Pens had me try out in their store. And it was because I loved the Pilot Metropolitan so much, but I didn't love the metal body, that I eventually upgraded to the Vanishing point because I was a big fan of Pilot at that point. So since the Kakuno, at least to my understanding, is they use the same nib as the Pilot Metropolitan, and when I got this pen, I mean, it's just an amazing writer. They come in all these different colors. This is my only one. If I had started my fountain pen journey with this pen, I might not have moved on to this one so quickly, but because I love the nib, I love the writing experience, I just really didn't like the Metropolitan. I felt like that deserved a bit of an honorable mention. That is all that I wanted to say about the pens. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will just put these away. If I thought picking my top 5 pens that have stood the test of time was difficult, picking inks was exponentially more difficult. So I did my best to pick the ones that I felt like have been in my collection for quite some time and I still come back to every year. And I also thought we could do a little bit of ink swatching as well, so we could look at the inks while we talk about it, which brings me to this new insert. This is my Traveler's Notebook. It's my last, this is sort of like my overflow TN insert that I use for extra ephemera that maybe doesn't fit elsewhere, but I want to save. And also I do a lot of like ink swatching and ink explorations in here. And I do this because this is amazing paper, and I always love to flip through something like this. Because I recently finished this insert, it's actually time to move on from this one, which is so exciting. So I thought today we could say goodbye to this insert now that it's full, and we could move into this one. So this is one of my special edition Kyoto inserts that I got when I was in Japan. I'm still working my way through the inserts that I bought from that trip, and I'm always very happy to break into a new one because it just means that I'm using the things that I purchased. I did already go ahead and I took all of the pages out so that I could print a grid on the pages. And so we're going to do some ink swatching in here. We also have my Hobonichi grid notebook. I do a lot of ink explorations in here as well. So we are going to move to a new page. I've already set up my grids. I also have a new dip pen. So I picked this up at Wonder Pens when I ran my last workshop. It is a Wearing All glass dip pen, and it was very reasonably priced. I think this was $12 Canadian. So I've been kind of wanting to get a dip pen for a while, but I just felt overwhelmed with how many there were out there. So I thought I would just start with this one because it was reasonably priced. I do find that it is a bit broad right out of the box. And apparently this is here to help sharpen it, but I don't really know how it works. So I'm not going to do that today, but I would like to eventually sharpen this a little bit and make it less broad, but we'll leave that for now. I was watching one of Bookish Mandy's videos recently, and she mentioned that she intentionally tries to show inks that are readily available and easy to get. And I actually think that's very thoughtful of her, because if you are watching a video and you fall in love with an ink, it would be really sad if you weren't able to access that ink. So my first ink, which is one of my favorite inks of all time, unfortunately is no longer in production. And I thought about not including it in the list, but it is an ink that I almost always have in a pen. And even though it is discontinued, instead of hoarding it, I've decided I'm just going to use it up and see how long it takes for me to use up this ink. And when it's gone, it's gone. I'm sorry, it's not available, but it is Pilot Iroshizuku Tsukushi. I am so sad that Pilot discontinued it. I think my last video or a couple of videos ago, I mentioned sometimes it can be annoying when something is discontinued or seen as limited edition, and then you pay more for it only for it to be re-released. However, if Pilot ever re-released Tsukushi, I would be thrilled because I do really love it. A close alternative to this is Pilot Iroshizuku Shun Gyo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's their newer brown edition that's kind of like a purpley brown. I love that ink too. I actually currently have it in my Pilot E95S, and I think that might be a permanent pairing, but I do love this ink more. So they also have a darker brown called Yamaguri, which is also very beautiful, but I still love this ink more. So you can see I have made a dent in it. I don't know if you can see from where you are, but it's about here. I've used about like this much, so it's definitely getting used. I typically use it with my Pilot Custom A23. I find Pilot inks are definitely some of my favorite because they're so reliable. If I have a pen that I'm having issues with, once I put a Pilot Iroshizuku ink in it, it'll either make the pen write really well, or if it's still a problem, it means it's a problem with the pen. I love their inks for that reason, because I do care a lot about the writing experience. And I find that a lot of the Pilot colors on their own are a little too bright for me. And I do prefer a lot of shading, and I do prefer more like chroma shading, if anything. And not a lot of their inks really have those properties. Tsukushi does have some really beautiful shading. So I don't know if you can see here my messy writing, but there is some beautiful shading that you can get with this ink, and I love that. I'm gonna try the back of this to see if I can maybe use that a little bit. I think I have this platinum muddler. I think this one's a little easier to use. Yeah, I just love, I mean, I'm sure there are other brown inks out there, which is why I don't mind using this up, because I think inks should be enjoyed, and I haven't really looked hard, but I'm sure that there are other inks. It's just, I mean, there are a lot of other warm brown inks in my collection that I love, but none of them feel quite as lovely in my Pilot Custom A23 as this one does. Because in the very beginning, when I bought my 823, I went on a mission to try to find the perfect brown ink to put in it. And I had a lot of really great contenders. Like I tried Ferris Wheel Press and the Wonder Pens collaboration writing desk, which was lovely. I tried Kobe's vintage Shioya, I forget what it's called exactly, which was lovely as well. I tried Robert Oster Cafe Crema. I tried Robert Oster Toffee, which was also a favorite for a while. I thought that was going to be my permanent pairing. But as soon as I got this ink, there was no comparison. It just flows so well. There's no resistance. There's no unpleasant feedback. Whereas some of the other brown inks that I tried, they just had a little bit of feedback. And I mean, I'm just being really picky at this point. It doesn't really matter that much. Oh, another ink that I tried in the pen, which is lovely, is Tsukushi, which is another beautiful brown, warm brown ink. But again, it just felt a little bit dry. And I mean, it wasn't dry to the point where I would refuse to use the pen. But if I had the choice between those inks and a Pilot Iroshizuku ink as beautiful as this, like I would just always choose this. So I'm very grateful that I managed to get a bottle of it, and I will savor it for as long as I can. I love how warm it looks on this Midori paper. Actually, you can see it here, the difference. This one looks a little more red, and this one looks like a beautiful warm brown. It's another reason why I love Midori paper so much. Okay, next ink. This is called Sailor Shikiori Rikyucha. I got this in 2023 as well. And I have made a pretty good dent in it. So it's, just looking at it here, it's about, I have this much left in this one. So this one's very well loved. I have also put this actually in my Pilot Custom A23. Unfortunately, I forgot to record it, but that was a really beautiful match. The only thing was it was a bit dry in that pen, again, compared to Tsukushi, but it showed beautiful shading, and I adored it. I really adored the combination. I have put this ink in so many pens, and it's just a consistent winner. I love it so much. Depending on the paper, it looks a little different. So I think comparing between these two is going to be really interesting. Here it definitely looks more olive green, but I do think it can dry down to a bit more of a brown. So we'll have to see how that dries. Looks like it's drying a little more brown at this point. Yeah, this is a beautiful ink. And it's so interesting on this paper, actually, how it looks more brown. Next to Tsukushi, this looks very brown, whereas here, it still has a bit of a green. It looks a little greener. Next, we have a color that I only got last year. I got this early last year in 2025, and I put it on here even though I haven't had it for a very long time, because it really is a color that has just become an instant favorite. And I know that a lot of people love this ink, or they think it's way too light to write with, but I happen to fall into the camp of loving this ink. It is Sailor Manyo Haha, and I actually have gotten more Manyo inks since getting this one because I loved it so much, but so far this one is actually still my favorite out of all the Sailor Manyo inks that I've tried so far, and I'm excited to show you today. This one also, I have made quite a dent. I'm about here. I still have quite a lot, of course, but I've used quite a bit of it considering I only got it last year, and I just love chroma shading inks. And even though this one isn't labeled as a chroma shader like some of the other Sailor Manyo inks, it just has some really beautiful colors that come out in large swatches. And the great thing is they also show up in broader pens. So it's this beautiful blue with purple undertones. I'm going to do really large swatches for this one so you can see. The next one is another ink that is relatively new to my collection, but it has become such a favorite that I almost always have it inked in a pen. And I love it the most in a Pilot Parallel pen because I love using it for headings. And it is Diamine Oxblood. I've tried Ancient Copper, I've tried Writer's Blood, and I've tried Oxblood. And out of the three, I think Oxblood is my favorite. I do love Ancient Copper, but I actually like another ink that's very similar to Ancient Copper a little bit more. But this one in a very thick line and like my Pilot Parallel pens, I adore. I'll show you really quickly. That is Oxblood. I think in my Traveler's inserts from last year, I used it a lot more, but it just has this really beautiful dark red, but with a bit of green sheen to it in large swatches. It may not be for everybody, but I really love the color. Last but not least, I had to include at least one of my DeAtramentis document inks because I love all of their browns. I have Urban Sienna, Sepia Brown, and Document Brown, and I love all of them. But this is the one that I have been using consistently since last year in my Pilot Vanishing point. So it's the one that I use pretty much every day, and it's a very lovely warm brown, which I think is very complementary to Tsukushi. So let's see how they look. It's going to be a very brown page, but that's okay. And I will say I was very excited when Diamine launched their Forever inks last year. I did buy Butterscotch and I bought Smoky Mauve, which is a beautiful color. And one more, I think it was a red of some sort. And I really wanted to love those inks, but they didn't play well in my pens as well as DeAtramentis inks do. So I had some issues with hard starts and in my Pilot Vanishing point. And I know it's not the end of the world, but considering I don't get hard starts at all with this ink brand, I just stick with it. I want my everyday pen to be reliable whenever I try to use it. These are my top 5 inks that have stood the test of time, with the caveat that these 2 inks, Sailor Manyo Haha and Diamine Oxblood, are only about a year old in my collection, but they have been consistently inked for about a year. I'm going to let these dry and I'll come back and show you what they look like. Okay, I am back. It's mostly dry. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 spots that aren't fully dry. So we'll start with the Hobonichi Grid notebook, which is Tomoe River paper. And this is how they turned out. As I'm looking at this, I can see clearly I have an affinity for brown inks. I knew this already, but it's kind of funny to see it here. So we have Tsukushi in the bottom corner here. This is Rikyucha, which is a little more green, very beautiful olive green brown. And this is DeAtramentis Document Brown, another very beautiful ink. I think when Tsukushi runs out, I would consider putting Document Brown in my Pilot Custom 823. My only hesitation is that I'm a little worried about staining, even though I don't think it would be that bad. And also, it's such a wet ink that I'm not sure how it would write with the Pilot Custom, because that is quite a wet writer on its own. Whereas the Platinum 3776 is a drier writer, so I think it kind of tempers the ink a little bit. So I don't know if maybe that's why. But anyway, that's what they look like on this paper. And then this is the MD cream paper. So you can see there is a little bit of sheen over here. I believe that's Tsukushi. It's actually a little bit hard to tell, to be honest. They look very similar. But this is Tsukushi in this bottom corner. And that's Rikyucha, which looks a lot more brown on this paper. I'm not complaining. I don't know if you can see this, but in writing, it does show a little bit of the shading. Like, it's a little hard to see because this is quite a wet. This is made with the glass dip pen, so it's a bit more saturated, but in a regular pen, you can see the shading, and it's a really beautiful ink. I love how it looks in writing. Sailor Manyo Haha is just as beautiful as I remember. So it's a blue, but there's purple, and there's a bit of green, and in writing, it comes out as this really bright blue that just makes me so happy when I write with it. Diamine Oxblood, still my favorite of all of the Diamine reds that I've tried. It just has this really rich and beautiful color, and then there's a bit of that green sheen, and when I write headings with this in a stub nib, it stands out really well, and I think it actually goes really well with other colors, if that makes sense. So I feel like in a way I kind of use it like a neutral, but I know it's a red. And we have Document Brown right here, a very beautiful kind of reddish brown that is a very wet ink. I don't know if you can see, even in here it's much broader than the other inks. Really look forward to seeing how long it takes for me to get to the end of those bottles. I mean, this is obviously a huge bottle. It's 50 mils, but I have used up, I've used up about this much, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I think that's pretty good for this ink. And same with Haha. Yeah, it's really hard to show you with the camera angle, but it's about here full. This one is almost done. I wish I could show you more easily, but it is less than halfway, so there's about this much left in this one. And luckily, all of these inks, aside from Tsukushi, are available. So when this is done, I would definitely consider buying another bottle. I mean, I do have a lot of other inks, so we'll see. I found Diamine Salamander is very similar to this ink, but I do think that this one has more depth to it. So if I had to choose between the two, I would choose this one, although Diamine Salamander is much more affordable compared to this. You can get a large 80 ml bottle for probably a similar price to this 20 ml. I didn't swatch them today, but I wanted to talk about a couple of honorable mentions. I forgot to mention it earlier. Peki is an ink that I use all the time, pretty consistently. And this is my most used bottle of Pilot Iroshizuku inks. I have about this much left. So I've used up about that much of Peki. It is very well loved. I use it to test all of my pens when I get them. So every time I get a new pen, I will ink it up in Peki first. That way I can compare it to the other pens that are also inked with Peki. So it's kind of like my control ink. And I do love it because it does have a lot of beautiful shading. And so it changes so much depending on the pen, and the differences are quite pronounced. I didn't include it in this list only because I've been using it so much that I am a little bit sick of it. So even though I do use it all the time. I have been tempted to switch my testing ink to something else just because I'm a little bit bored of Konpeki, but at the same time, I've managed to use so much of it, and that is very rewarding. And this is me using it. I haven't given any samples away of Konpeki because I think a lot of people already have this color, and so when I do ink trades, it's very rarely a color that people request. So this is all me, which I think is even more impressive. And the last one is Ginger Chicken. I almost put this ink instead of Oxblood, but I do use this ink more. Ever since I discovered it, I use this more consistently. But this is a very beautiful orangey, coppery red, and this one is very similar to Diamine Ancient Copper, but I feel that this one has a little bit more warmth to it because there's a bit more orange, and I prefer that. So I liked it so much that I actually already finished a bottle of Ginger Chicken. So this is my second bottle of Ginger Chicken. I do actually think I have a comparison. This is Diamine Ancient Copper, and that's Ginger Chicken. It's going to be a little hard to find it here because obviously I didn't label them, but I do think that this is Ginger Chicken over here, this kind of orangey color. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this is Ancient Copper. So you can see very, very, very similar, but not exactly the same. Okay, that is all that I have for you today. I'm curious what you would put in your top 5 pens and inks that you have used over time. I'm curious if you think there's any other inks that I should try. I'm always looking for new inks to try, so if you have any suggestions, please send them my way. Also, I'm curious if you're surprised at what you see here. Were you expecting me to say anything else? I know that I talk a lot about how much I love purple inks, and I do have a lot of green inks as well that I love. So it was very, very difficult to narrow this down, but ultimately I went for inks that I have used for a much longer time than simply just a sample. If you made it this far, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon in the next video.